Seeing the cameras.
We're not. Okay. Let's call the meeting to order, please. All right, first on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Now this includes the late items that we sent out.
There are supporting material for items number 5.1, 1, 2, and 3.
Can I get somebody to move to accept this or approve this agenda? Thanks, Judy. Seconded by Kim. All right, adoption of the minutes. Any changes, concerns from last time at the end of the package? Yeah.
Good.
Okay, do I have somebody to move to accept? Thanks, Julian. Seconded by Mimi. Thank you, Mimi. Okay, on to public comments. Anybody there? Oh, we've got Gail. Good. Gail's here, so we'll carry on from that. Update. Community center construction update. Jillian and Lee. Yes. Looking forward to this.
Well, the good news is that everything is very close, very, very close.
Never heard.
Well, on December 19th, they conducted an occupancy dry run. So pulling together all the consultants, all the trades, the main trades to identify anything that was deficient for occupancy. So that was a really good process, and all of the consultants expressed their concern and they worked through any of the challenging pieces. So that was, you don't do that event if you're not getting close to the real thing and doing that occupancy review. So that's done. This Friday is a safety systems demonstration, integrated safety system demonstration for the fire department. And I can't remember everybody else who's there, but you know,
Building inspector.
Building inspector will be there.
And architects and a few consultants.
Yeah. So that's a critical piece in advance of occupancy. So all of the systems are working, all the mechanical, electrical systems are working, but lighting's being commissioned, that's been done. There is an issue with the septic tank pump electric to be worked out, but that's one of the main hold up still. So they're down to little pieces like that. So it really is getting close. And paving is happening tomorrow from the edge of the site in. They couldn't get the traffic control people there this week, so they can't do the exterior portion because it involves quite a bit of work on Trunk Road and controlling traffic. So that'll be next week. So all of these things are things that have to be checked off before you can get occupancy, but it really is getting close. And the rooms inside, for the most part, they are done. There are some aesthetic deficiencies still to be addressed, but for example, in the theater, the drapes are in, everything is in. What's not in are some final AV components with sound and the lighting. So we have the lighting package. We're waiting on all that, or all the equipment. We're waiting till we own the building, and then we'll bring in our installer and put that up. But it's at that stage, right? So it's really is close.
I'd say when, talking to people over the break and things like that, I said, if I were to walk you through the building, you'd say it's done, essentially. So it's those little things that, that the definite detail eyes are looking at, and the inspectors and those sort of things that they're looking at are the things that we're still waiting to get the final sign-offs on.
Right. But in the meantime, we've done things like the furniture's ordered for the living room. That's all on the route. We're working with a consultant and doing some community engagement and asking opinions about the weight room equipment. But so we're really close to finalizing those decisions on the final extra pieces of equipment that we can purchase. So we'll get that in there, working on all that sort of signage that has to go around with that thing, that sort of things like the rules of the weight room, codes of conduct, all that kind of stuff has to come in. So starting to work on those levels of things. The Braille actually says what it's supposed to, so that's nice. That's been approved. Yeah. So as I say, it's getting really close.
It's a $1 million question. Do you have a date?
No,
I hate to ask that, but somebody has to.
no, but I think, I'm hoping that next week that we are getting closer to that.
Is there an inspector that has to come from Off Island in order to
Yeah.
like give you the occupancy permit?
We have two, yeah, so we have a fire inspector from off island and a building inspector.
Right.
But all of the documentation, all that paperwork that has to get into the architects. So all the consultants have to approve the work and write their letters of assurance and their schedules and get that to the architects, and that's all coming together. So all of that binder of content is very close to being with the building inspector. And
So this is probably not related, but so how is the process for you as the employees that when you get into occupancy, like, so you can organize the move and stuff like that? What, are they letting you into the building yet, or no, they're still going, you need to get that building inspector permit done before you're allowed to initiate it?
You don't move anything in until you've got the occupancy.
Occupancy permit.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because then you take control and everything else is your problem.
Gotcha. Oh, I see. Right, that's everything, that's right.
So would some of like the aesthetic deficiencies, for example, be addressed after occupancy while you're moving in, or is it want all of that done before? You move in?
Probably letters of agreement in terms of the aesthetics would be things that could happen afterwards.
Right.
Depending if the furniture's in place.
There will be some things that could also be seasonal deficiencies like plantings and things like that too.
right, good point.
But for the most part, there will be deficiency lists generated. It'll sort of be up to us on whether or not those are gonna hold us back from moving in, I think. Anything, it's not a major inspector or building life safety thing.
So does that mean that before Christmas you were talking about or sometime in February, maybe around Family Day, and is that like getting too close for you, given all that has to be done? It just, I'm asking, you don't have, you're not gonna tell anybody, just, you know what I mean? It's. Yeah.
As an event, you mean?
Or, yeah, like, or just even, or is that now you've gone, like, we probably.
So that's 6 weeks away. So if we don't have occupancy now,
Yeah.
then that's unrealistic, I think,
Okay.
in terms of organizing a move and getting it,
Right,
you know, so that everybody knows
Mhm.
how to work the doors and the locks and whatever.
gotcha, okay.
And there are elements, like, for example, moving this room is quite an operation,
Yeah, I know,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So are you still envisioning, once we're in, that we'll do like a test drive of the lighting and sound with some theater groups, just to kind of see how it all works still?
Yeah,
I hope to,
Yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
I think that will be the. You know, that'd be a good way to introduce people to the room without it, being a, blank slate for the first time you come in to do a show, like, I think. It'd be good to have people to have a feel of the room.
Yeah,
It's, and I think it happens a lot in layers. This is a tiny punch, but when we changed our layout and our seating and how it worked, we would have people come in and want to know how to use it, who are user groups. And that was, wow, how many years ago was that? So that's like 8 years ago, and we're still doing tours.
Mhm.
Like, you just do them so often, we just really had to figure out how to do it like all the time. So it got a bit annoying to the staff initially, do you know what I mean? Like, oh my God, are we doing this again? And then finally I realized after a year, we had to figure out how to keep doing it
Mhm.
like all the time. You know what I mean? Because there's always new people showing up who wanted to do it, and we thought we could just do it and then it would be behind us, but it wasn't, it was operational.
I think what we were trying to say was more of like let's check to see our own little, like, can we work this, and is there any?
But that is that training always.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
will be always going.
Well,
It's exciting.
it is exciting.
right. Okay, any more left on that, or can we jump over to Jamie and the Hearth update, 2 new contract positions? There you go.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. 2 new contract positions, a marketing specialist and the live arts coordinator have been posted. And the deadline date is the 25th January. We received a few resumes.
On island? Sorry, on island people?
I actually haven't looked that closely.
Oh,
Are you advertising off island,
No,
just on the website?
Website, newspaper, newsletter,
Social media, see you.
social media. I think, you know, perhaps those two positions need to be filled by someone that lives on island. Commuting, we hired a summer person one summer that commuted and it didn't work out that well. You know, with the ferry schedule and. I think we have enough talent on the island to fill those two roles. And the one is just temporary, so
They're not full-time positions either, so.
Neither of them are
you for
full-time.
full-time, or yeah, for
Yeah.
non-full-time, it'd be tricky. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. But that,
I think
on to Gail, we have Gail,
Gail's not gonna be.
Park
doing-
Performing Arts Committee update.
So, thank
Hi,
you.
Gail. We can't hear you.
Oh, it's not your fault. And
Okay.
we can't hear you and it's not your fault. Can you hear us? You can hear
I
us.
can
put your
hear
thumbs
you.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know that she was prepared to make a report anyways, so.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Gail. All right, well, let's just move it on to then Seniors Keeping Young update. That's another Gail one, but maybe.
well, you can't hear me.
One there that says control room.
Hello?
I just had the impression that she wasn't really into the show.
Okay.
Oh.
Gail, with a thumbs up or a thumbs down, do you have a report for us on Seniors Keeping Young?
Wait,
Can't hear you.
We
One
did
second.
meet with two people from seniors meeting, just to go over. I think it was about the possibility of how they could work within the volunteer side of the building and how they see themselves using the building in the future.
Mhm.
They also expressed an interest in coming through for a quick tour. Maybe was there too. So please jump in if I'm missing anything. It was a good meeting where we got to, talk about how this building will be usable by many different groups and that the space available to them, will fluctuate with days, like how busy the days are, and it may not be every single room every single day available, but that, chances are there will be something for them, just like any other group on there. Anything else?
We discussed using some of the different rooms perhaps for their uses, so we talked about the different possibilities of which rooms they might use. So.
There are challenges of having 100 people in their group and not having a space that they can put 100 people into, so they were excited about that. Possibility in the new spaces too.
Do they think that volunteers have been helped with things like front of house or?
They were maybe interested,
Yeah,
a
they,
little hesitant, maybe.
yeah, I think they weren't against the idea. I don't think that wasn't my impression. I don't know if you thought that too. But they weren't like volunteering at that time. They just want to know more about what the building is going to be like and what's going to happen in there. What the benefits could be.
Cool. Thank you. Oh, we're moving quick.
Did you get the impression that if there was some way of incentivizing it? Like the whole idea of what K-Meet does in terms of making sure that people that help with front of house have free tickets to the event?
You mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay. I think whether it's that group or any others, that's, make it pleasant.
I'm working on 4 shows right now from a budget perspective, and I've budgeted like 4 people will get a seat for free as a front of house. Just, it seems like a good number. And yeah, I think I like the idea still. And I wouldn't want to limit it just to Seniors Keeping Young. I think there'd be some opportunity for some younger people in there as well too, but consistency would be important, that volunteer coordinator, whoever it ends up having to be.
And Gail asked them also to consider what would work for them, if they want to work within certain hours, if they wouldn't want to work the full. There were a theater group, for example, doing a production, they were given tickets, would they want to stay for the whole time? Would they volunteer for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, that kind of thing? So she asked them to think about that and then get back to us.
Yeah.
So they were gonna actually meet, and then report back to us as well.
Okay.
The 2 representatives were gonna go back to their group and then discuss.
Great.
And I'm gonna be reaching out to the 2 people that were there in regards to taking a few people, if not their whole board, on a tour of the building before it opens. They seemed quite interested in that.
So you're not locked out on doing tours right now from a cleaning perspective or any of that?
No, not yet. There's still spaces that we shouldn't.
Yeah.
We're just gingerly will look into, or
Like the beauty side, they don't need to go in.
we don't need to, yeah, just that has been the most, that is the furthest along, I think, cleaning wise.
Yeah.
But other rooms are coming to that point, but we're still able to open doors to put that in. And see that. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Okay, we're ready to move along. Business arising from minutes, community center proposed staffing. Counselor Judy Getty.
How did my name go?
Eeny, meeny, miny, moe.
Okay, so there's, somebody has created this, spreadsheet that I wasn't able to look at very well on my computer, and I've only just seen it in its very tiny print, so. I can't, I hope everybody else has had a chance to look at it. I don't. Bigger one than the one. No, I just. So.
On
I've
the
got this
screen,
go
maybe
through.
zoom it up a little bit.
I can print it larger, it just seemed nice to have it all on one, it's part of the.
Okay. 6 of one, half dozen of the
I
other.
know.
All on one that you can't read, or? All right, so there's that to play with, and then there's the attachments that came with the job description for the booking coordinator and the that looks like it's got the BIM logo on it, so I'm assuming that staff thing, and then there's the programming and production coordinator. And this looks very similar to the one that Carl has been provided and opened up.
Yeah.
It is the one that we.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so, I think that this is the key piece that we need to try and get organized. If this isn't a priority in terms of the rest of the agenda, then,
You want to do it?
Yeah, this is the one. It's slightly different than.
Oh,
what
you
was
sent it to me by
emailed
email.
Because I clarified, and I noticed
Sorry.
there were a few edits that needed to happen immediately, you know.
so did you help put this together?
Yeah, this
Can you
was,
run us through it and explain basically how it's set up?
Did you email
Uh,
that?
pardon me?
Did you email it to me?
No, but I'll share screen right now.
Is this the one that was attached to the email?
It's,
Maybe a little update.
it's, yeah,
Oh, it's
the only difference between what was in the email and now is up at the top. Sorry, let me just share screen first. I can't.
I don't mind doing it if you send it to me.
The difference being, it was a little bit muddled at the top, the titles weren't fully written out and it didn't talk about like how much of a staff position it was. For example, was it a full-time or half-time or, so what I did was just clean up the top and put the titles in red and underneath. Is it with BIM, is it with the heart? This is what you have there.
But that's the one that I printed from the email.
It's just a lot neater, so I'm just saying it's cleaned up.
The same, but slightly.
It's slightly, yeah, just slightly. And it also says below, you know, are they new, are they existing, is it, like I clarified, because there was confusion talking to people. Trying to understand the live arts coordinator temporary contract position versus the production and programming coordinator full-time position. So that was the purpose of this, just trying to clarify up at the top. It's coming. So this is what we saw like a year or something ago. With the a lot of the content that Jamie had put together as well. So if you put that into this so that they're all in one and just and tried to fill it out a little bit more. And I think this is representing hours and hours and hours of work that we've all done to get to this point, right? So this is actually finally showing all in one place, all of those hours of meetings together and figuring out what all the roles and responsibilities are. So I think it probably is a good idea to go through this together and look at what editing we need to continue to do here. And I think identifying the gaps is really important as well. Currently, we just kind of have a couple of gaps, but I think it may be more significant than that perhaps. So would we like to sort of go from the top and go on down through it all?
That would be helpful.
Make a suggestion instead of get bogged down, we can get bogged down when we run out of time. Is if someone has an issue with the line item and wants to discuss, just make a note. And then I think we come back to it because I find sometimes when you do it, you get the ones at the top and then some of the important ones at the bottom.
Absolutely. And I will say too that I did notice, and I didn't notice in time before, that there are a couple of repeats.
Yeah.
And that's just sort of because of the fusion of the documents and the size of it that I missed a few things and I should have sorted it a little bit more, but
We can get to that.
yeah.
Carry on.
So at the top it says facility reception, which is, basically who's that first face when you walk in the door, the smiling welcome face.
At the
who's
desk.
At the desk.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we hadn't really talked about that responsibility here, but there's no doubt that that's a very time consuming activity there. I don't think, well, I know we're not looking at being able to staff that from facility opening to close at this time. There will be some hours beginning of the day, at the end of the day, that there's not somebody at that front desk, but there will be a custodian on site at all times or in those gaps. So should we just say if anybody wants to shout out, oh, I think this person would also be doing that, we just add it in?
Just to grab the code, Y means yes, right? And what does green mean?
Oh, sorry, this is sort of emerging. I think the yes and the green are the same.
They're the same.
They're the
Got
same.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
And support would mean that that would say rec department staff would be supporting the other groups doing such and such.
Yeah, so in this example with the first one, facility reception, we're looking at being recreation department staff covering that, but the booking coordinator could sit at that desk as well and help with that role. Yeah, but it's not their primary function.
Okay.
Primary responsibility. Any room rental tour, an introductory room tour, again, like Kim, like you were saying about planning the tours and like we talked before about trying to schedule tours once a month, and I don't actually think that's the reality. People are just gonna show up and so I think that's something that a lot of us in the facility think that we'd easily be doing.
I think you need to keep track of the time though. And I think that if there's, especially at the beginning when there's a whole lot of curiosity and interest, that if you're gonna do one off all the time, as opposed to, can you come back? We're doing tours of facility organized with groups of people, 20. And can you come back on a Wednesday afternoon or Thursday evening?
Maybe it's a day of the week. And
Maybe for the first while, it's this day of the week and
And speaking of from a little bit of experience, not everybody wants to see everything. So what you do is you group people by what they're looking for. So people are interested in renting the activity room, right? They don't necessarily have to know everything in the whole building. Because we were doing that initially and then it got down to like, oh no, you want to know this. So we're gonna train out that work.
And I guess I was also thinking of it in terms of, somebody comes, let's use Toady for an example, saying, oh, we want to come and do a tour, we want to do a show. Yeah, if they just want to see that.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by not really scheduling that lots of people, yeah. it
And
just
also-
pop up.
And also the rules are a little bit different depending on who is looking to rent it. And so they don't need to know all the different categories. of
Right.
what the-
We've just been through the process of digging into something
Yeah.
that, you know, in terms of what we're trying not to do.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
let's just start something in terms of, you know, I'd like to talk more about that.
Yeah.
Right? And
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything I said.
I started it. I know. Everybody followed right along. It's real easy.
Yeah.
The rooming equipment orientation is fairly self-explanatory, so it's probably facility manager and the booking coordinator primarily. Simple requests, I think recreation staff could support. Yeah. And just noting that we're still all, for a while, in this category of any room rental and not focusing on performance.
Sure.
So schedule and manage facility rentals. This is primarily the booking coordinator role, but with support from facility manager and recreation department staff. And that is broken out in a little more depth, I guess, 2 lines down. Client communications and stewardship, I think reality is we're all doing a lot of that, but particularly as it pertains to a specific rental request and need. That comes from that booking coordinator.
I asked a question about the new role, the new BIM role, the facility booking coordinator. I noticed that it's a daytime, Monday to Friday position. You may find that custodians are too busy to manage what they have to manage on the weekends and on the evenings and things. I don't know if this position should just be a daytime position, but maybe it needs to be some weekends and evenings.
Yeah. It's booking though, it's not managing the event.
But when you look at their, you know, some of their roles, they are sort of talking to clients at different times of the day.
So
So it's just something.
are you getting into the booking coordinator description?
So we'll put a
Is
star
that where
beside
that's
that.
coming from?
Yeah, if we can maybe come back to that.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I think a flag, it's a good point, Jane, I'm just making a flag over that. Good talk. Because if there's other things that might come up related to that.
Okay, so the next line sort of breaks down a little bit more, everything, not everything, but some of the main components involved with managing the contracts with renters and the database requirements with it. So it's a fairly complex system that we've talked about before, the software. And there's a lot of details in terms of depending, you know, we as a group have created all these different type of user groups, right? And within our rental policy, we said, well, this group can book at this time and has to pay their deposit then, or doesn't pay a deposit. And, you know, there's so many nuances to that, that it really needs to be in the hands of one individual as much as possible. So that's why that some of all this is listed there, and really working with the clients, understanding what their needs are, and translating that into a firm booking with all of those important dates for to receive payments or return deposits, and keeping track of when this is all happening, when is their next deposit due, with setting up payment plans within the system and all of that. And then, you know, helping them understand what they need to do in terms of licensing or insurance, or compliance with our policy, being sure they're in alignment with that and how they get them. And then one of the most important pieces of that is that the financial reconciliation with the software. Because we have to make sure the monies are all accounted for properly and going to the right place. Next line is small rental equipment management, microphones, podiums, tables, chairs, all the small stuff. We see that sort of being spread across a few roles there. It's that's probably going to be whoever can handle that at times, quite honestly. I separated out, and I apologize, this is separate from what was emailed yesterday, but I realized that supporting clients, supporting renters during their events is significantly different with a small daytime event than it is with a large evening or weekend event. So that's why this is separated out in that area, because I do believe that is one of our largest gaps is who is helping these clients with their weddings and things like that. That's a big need.
Goes to what you were saying earlier, right?
Yeah, yeah, but it'll all get sorted out, once it opens. And you'll see your gaps.
I mean, at the end of the day, somebody coming in for a wedding in the evening isn't gonna be the only
Let's
person.
make it, let's make a note and keep
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
It is on the gap
Yeah.
column
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
me.
that's right. I got it too.
Room inspection before and after rental. On to facility manager, booking coordinator, and supported by the rec department. Sign off on rental completion. Sorry, I think support should be there as well. Rec staff. Oh. Maybe not, actually. I don't know, Lee, what do you think?
Or legal thing.
Yeah.
It's not, maybe it just stays with Lee or facility manager. So now we're entering into the performance theater for performance rental. And this is where there are some duplications with down below, so we should talk about that here. So production intake meeting. Jamie, and for down below, we had production management. So I just wanted to actually ask, what is the language we want to use around this? Is it production management or is it, what is it here? That's
Can be confused if you call it production management, because it's really just about the venue and not about not about the production that's going in there. So we don't, it isn't, we actually have it, our facilities manager, it's the facilities management of the facility. Rather than just for clarity, even though we have the same person doing both. It's, person doing production management, we also have facility management. Just like we treat them like they're two completely separate jobs. Because when we use the word facility manager, we know we're talking about somebody who's renting the facility. And not necessarily something that could be engaged to help produce what's supposed to be in it there. I don't know if that's useful, but then that might be confusing how you're using facility management already, right? So we can call it coordinator, sometimes called facility coordinator.
But this is about the task, not the person.
No, exactly. I'm just
Right,
trying to figure out
start.
the task, right?
Yeah,
Can we start?
yeah, because I think there's some elements of in-house productions
Yeah.
or hearth productions where
Exactly.
it is more production management,
Yeah.
right? So, okay. Technician training and oversight, sitting with the facility manager exclusively.
Mhm.
Tech equipment orientation, again, I mean, that's quite similar,
Mhm.
sitting with the facility manager exclusively. Basic room setup, so this is not any of the complicated AV, this is just things like seating, projector, screens. I think that's a shared responsibility, I think, because it's easy, but as we see, it's across the board in all sorts, so there's a question mark with over at the new hearth position, so. When I was, just for discussion. And that sort of, it links up with another one down below as well. Sorry, where are we? Technical equipment setup, that's definitely the contract technician. And I made a point, noted at the top that this is contracted directly by the user. Technician. Tech assist during the event, again, that's the technician, that's their whole point. And managing that equipment, making sure at the end of the day that equipment is all returned properly and in good condition. Falling mainly with the contract technician. But I think depending on the size of the rental and the what's going on, I think it could be spread across, but I did think that this one was a point, maybe we needed to discuss this.
Yeah.
This. Technical equipment reset to house setting, that's the technician's.
Is that the contract or the? House tech.
We have no house
There
tech.
is no host tech. Every,
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be me, I
Facility
think, so it's the responsibility of the renter to return the rooms to the state they work for. So be
They're
part of
gonna
that.
be trained how to do that.
Yeah, the technician will be.
I've got some comments on that, but I'd like to wait till we get through everything that I can.
So now we're entering a new category briefly, and then we'll go back to others. Facility general communications. So we've talked about, so this one talks about the VICC website. So at our workshop, our last workshop when we met, we were talking about the full facility website and providing information on that facility website, which is information about the rooms and the rental process and all of that sort of general facility information, and having a very generalized calendar of events for the full facility, and then a more specific Bowen Theatre website with more details on the productions that take place, the performances in there. And so they're different, they're linked, they're complementary, but they have different types of information. So the Bowen Theatre specific website content you'll find a little bit later on.
Makes sense.
So that the ICC website, would be the booking coordinator. And with help from rec staff and the facility manager. I think as well, that's the calendar of events, same thing, except for not with facility manager. I think facility manager's role in the website is, making sure the policies are up to date and there's things like that, and room information. Yeah. Maintain community notice board, well, it's what it is, that's not anything major. Facility administration, assist with updates to rental documents, processes, policies. That, I guess we really could be putting green across the entire thing and all through all of us, right? Because that's what we're all here for. But if there's anything that needs to go up on the website or small changes, we're anticipating, we've tried to think out all of these elements of the software and our policies and our forms, but things will need to change. So that's the next one is about the software, again, landing exclusively with the booking coordinator, so I don't get in there and mess it up. Theater equipment, coordinate inventory, maintenance, updates, and repairs to tech equipment. That would fall to facility manager. Now we're into a section, theater, and I called it business development, following from our workshops that we've been having. So now is when we're talking about that very specific Bowen Theatre promotions and that very specific website for that, and doing social media and newsletters around that. And that had been identified within this marketing specialist position at the heart.
Can I add a Y to that?
I think green is one.
Yeah, I could take out all the Ys.
Green is
Maybe
one.
it's clean.
I got, once I understood.
I know, sorry.
Green is one.
It was a lot to try and see in a
Why is green?
document, yeah.
Yeah, just try to be consistent.
Bowen Theatre website links ticket sales, that again is within that hearth role of the marketing specialist, as is ticket sales box office. Now, I did wonder, that's also falling within live arts coordinator and production and programming. Theater performance rental front of house, so on-site ticket sales and box office management. If we're providing that service, it would be something that the hearth is supporting. Hosting services, ushers, check tickets, customer service. All that front of house, work with the live arts coordinator, the production and programming coordinator. Concession, I'd like to put a star and understand what that means, like what is it that we are saying we might do? Marketing and sourcing productions. Sorry, we're back to business development. So marketing and sourcing productions. That's those hearth rolls. Preferred licensing and insurance, and that's the booking coordinator and the production program coordinator and live arts coordinator. Catering coordination, again, I was a bit curious if we could talk about what that might look like. Backstage requirements. I wasn't quite positive what that is.
That's £80.
Yeah,
Somebody's rider, for example.
yeah.
Yeah.
So just managing that or getting all the things that are required
Just
or,
getting it, yeah.
okay. Production management, when it starts for us to talk about it again, room setup and strike, so I think I need to consolidate with up above, that one.
Consolidate with,
Oh, sorry, I forgot that I'm sharing, no, you're sharing.
I'm sharing. just, I wasn't clear on the room setup and strike. I've got numbers on mine, 14 and 38 are possibly the same. And then room setup and strike is with which? Up?
Up top, it's basic room setup.
It's,
Yeah, although I wasn't sure if it's potentially a more extensive role when it's specifically, like if it's supporting a production, right? If it's being the producer for a role, then maybe it is a more elaborate setup, in which case maybe we want to define them separately.
I've got a note on this about how it might be a little bit simpler. It's a really good point.
Perfect.
There's a whole group that get covered in a certain way, so I have to start it.
Okay. Execute live arts events.
What's that?
That was with the live arts coordinator role, if you want to speak to that. The question was, what is it?
Event?
Execute live arts events. I think it's producing it or,
Yep.
yeah.
So it says in-house performance, right?
Oh, right, sorry, I added in-house performance.
So that,
If we, that was one of my questions, could be like that category defined in that way, might help. Business development, sourcing live arts events with the live arts coordinator and production and programming coordinator. Call for artists, also with those two. Event budgets / financial reporting to BIM and Hearth. Sorry, that's with production, live arts coordinator and production programming coordinator. Now, this is taken from the job description for that role, so obviously rec department would be having budgets and reporting as well, so. Assist with sponsorship and fundraising opportunities.
sorry, Julian, so am I adding rec?
Oh,
to
yes,
that?
please.
Yes, okay, so I'm making that green.
Yeah, it's. Well, I sort of, yeah, it's
Support.
from,
Oh.
yeah. But I wasn't quite sure, either we changed the language of it, or which I didn't want to do because it wasn't my line item so much, so. Sponsorship and fundraising. I think assisting with it would actually, we'd probably put facility manager in green there as well, and then work with custodial. Build relationships with partners. Again, that's actually. That would be rec and facility manager as well. Again, we're all doing that, right?
Yeah.
Arts grants management, applications, implementation, and reporting. That was listed by the Hearth as functions within the live arts coordinator and production and programming. But I would see a supporting role being important from that. Final inspection, I think that's one maybe we merge with one up top as well. And client interface. Wasn't quite sure what to do.
I think you've got it covered on top. Might be a good-
Yeah. Client communications and stewardship. Okay, now we're back in the category of business development. Work closely with our PAC, Performing Arts Committee, to curate, contract, promote, and present. That being, really the productions that the Hearth is running. So that would be the live arts coordinator and the production and programming coordinator. Track, support, and work closely with on-island productions. I think, Steph, if you could put booking coordinator in green potentially, or blue. I think they probably have some needs that are met by that person. Marketing / communications for community center live events with the marketing specialist. Bowen Theater website map. That's definitely a repeat.
Yeah.
Okay. Poster design.
I think that's all in there, actually. So those are just breakouts of that.
Yeah, the earlier one was Bowen Theater Productions, unique website, social media, newsletters, etc.
And you also, it's performing arts, it's not just theater, it could be a music event, it could be a dance event. It's a little just.
Well, Bowen Theater Promotions means it's in that room.
Yeah, that's why I think
Yeah.
they just call it performing, like it's a performance room. I'm just wondering before people don't get confused by the terminology, thinking it's just about promoting the theater events, but it's actually any of the performing arts thing. And there's
Okay.
I'm wondering if it's a nice breakout list. But they do fall into like one category,
Mhm.
which is the marketing communications for live events. So you do it through website, through stream, through,
Mhm.
just.
I could see a fusion of those happening there. Build audience list.
Database, that's interesting. I think we just flag that, we can talk about that, that's an interesting discussion.
And the last two line items on this are related to displays in the facility. So there's two locations. There's one that's the gallery that's at the end of the theater, which has spaces for about 4 or 5 large paintings. And then there's the long corridor as well. So they've been separated out. And that's in that that column of existing part,
Yeah,
staff, and then the full,
right.
in terms of the gallery, and then the corridor, it remains a gap.
Those are great. Well done, Joan.
Well, this is a combined effort for sure. I was trying to- yeah.
2 workshops.
This is everybody's
Yeah.
work.
Really great.
And I-
Do you want to start from where we started from and work backwards, or start from the top? What would be better for you? I'm just taking some notes as we went through.
Let's go
it.
from the top.
Let's go back to the beginning. Sure. May I make an observation which might simplify things a little bit? As it's divided up before you get into the weeds a little bit, is basically the way I see it is you've got like 3 areas, right? There's the venue and the management of the venue. As a venue with, as a rental, whatever it is, the things that have to do with the venue. Then there is the producer presenter stuff, which are things that are the producer presenters do, right? That the venue, people who are renting out the venue don't get involved in. And there's 2 kinds of presenter producers. There's in-house presenter producers, and the in-house presenter producer is like the Hearth, or things that are associated with the Hearth that are always ongoing because they're working there all the time, long-term planning, what it is. But a lot of the things that you're having questions about fall into the role of who the producer presenter is. It's good if you've got a person, which is like a hire, who's taking on the responsibility of overseeing that, right? And then you've got the rental producer presenter, right? And so the rental producer presenter often is dealing with the venue, right? But the skills are with the in-house producer presenter. So as you got into the, how do we talk about this? It's good to go, I think sometimes you look at it, you go like, yes, by being specific when you were talking about some things like who's gonna, oh, silly, easy one, who's setting up the backstage requirements? Well, that's the producer presenter, it has nothing to do with the venue. Producer presenter makes sure that that's there, right? So you keep the venue out of it completely. Now, the in-house producer presenter will take care of their stuff. And if you've got a rental coming in and they're the producer presenter, they have to follow within the rules that have been figured out, right? So it's like, who's doing the job? So when it's just a way of looking at it. Is that helpful? Because you go like, if it's gonna be done by the hearth, then you guys know how to do that and you're gonna take responsibility for setting up the backstage area, right? And so you have to ask the venue, which is you're in there all the time, for what you need and you're gonna do it, but it's not the venue's gig. So I don't, it's just like really making it really, really clear, like that line of communication. So you don't have people, when they come into the venue, asking for a bunch of stuff as a renter, that you go like, no, you don't get that. And then how come they do? They'll say, well, that's because they're the producer presenter of the venue, right? So we have that, we supply it for our own things, but we don't do it for other people. And even in our own place, we make a clear distinction between what the venue's gig is and what our gig is as the person who's putting the thing on in the venue. We don't even mix it up in our own staff, right? So I just don't know if this section up here was to be assigning,
Looking at that gap column.
yeah, just in the gap, it's not so much a gap because it is covered, it's just maybe a bit of an overlap. Is it gonna be something that like Lee would look at, but your facility, he's rental, not producer presenter, right? It's a really clear line in that area, which I think is good as it's laid out in tasks, so they don't overlap.
Kristen had
I was just wondering if, I heard you mention an in-house producer presenter and then a production, external producer
Yeah,
presenter.
rental, yeah.
Do you having trouble with all of the different positions and naming things? So I'm wondering if we could stick to the common terms that we have up here.
Sure, absolutely.
And my question to you is, do you see both of those roles covered within these positions?
Absolutely, because the rental one, the difference is that when you have a rental
the
coming
rental
from the
one?
outside. Somebody, I'm gonna rent it to put on a concert. Tony's gonna rent it, right? But Tony's gonna rent it, and so they're gonna provide, their relationship is gonna be, as a rental venue that you have already with the venues that you rent, right? That's an outside rental. So what's the relationship that Tony has with, let's say, the Hearth, where they're presenting a series of events, right? And so when Hearth does a series of presenting events, they're going to have their producer, presenter, organizing what those events are, advertising and talking about them. So they'll have a relationship with the venue like it was a rental.
So does that mean putting in a different, like one row is like this role for Cody and another row is this role for?
Well, you've got it covered here already. It's already here. It's like overlaps. And I don't think you need to change necessarily the document because it's nicely, very specifically detailed. But as you're looking, figuring out who you're assigning it to, it's good to have that clarity because you go like, oh, obviously this is going to be Hearth administrator. Or when you're looking at it, you go like, oh, it's obviously going to be Lee because it's a rental, right? Or it's going to be, I'm just trying, so you don't get an overlap.
So I sort of feel like we need an extra column as like a user group one. So for a Toby that goes rent, are we expecting the Hearth's marketing specialist to do our poster design? No, we would do that in our own, group. Perhaps same with audience list or ticket sales if
Or
we were
volunteer
using
coordination.
Eventbrite. Yeah, those sorts of things. So maybe that's a spot where we can say, yeah, that's that person, that user group is still, of course, working with the booking coordinator for X, Y, and Z. Maybe still talking about the Hearth about this, but they're also taking responsibility for some of those things. So that, at the end of the day, is this posted on the website that
No.
people can look at? Okay,
No,
good.
the whole
This is
point
just
of this is figuring out staffing requirements.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think at the same time too, like you have an expectation that if you're going in by yourself as a rental, whether it's a wedding or otherwise, these are the things that we expect that user group to do and we're not covering it.
Right,
And it's covering gas,
but
but
this is a good one, this is one that's laid out really well, like just.
If I may.
Yeah, sure.
So if we're getting into all the different user groups, that was that other policy work that we did before. Then we're expanding a lot of detail in terms of, you know, whether it's any room rental or performance rental or whatever. So I think we have to be careful that we don't get too far into the weeds on that,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So we could expand this in terms of, you know, different levels of involvement of things. I also think another way that we have to look at this is maybe, you know, ideally, this would be covered by this and this and this person. But at some point, we have to go back and figure out, you know, for example, somebody that is learning about the contract and database management, and that's a major function of booking coordinator. I don't know how long it would take that person to learn that system well and become really adept at it. But I would think that if it's, you know, 10 hours a week, that the first little while, it could take up a whole lot of time. And that we might not be able to get that person to take on a whole lot of other responsibilities until later on in the position, right? So at some point, I think we have to go back and figure out, once we've got this green, blue, whatever sorted out, we also have to take the step of figuring out, you know, what are our priorities and what do we want to make sure that this person is really good at, and what are we willing to let slide for a little while, or until we get more money, or until we, you know, they become more adept. So I think if we're gonna go through this now, in terms of ideally, this is how to divide up the tasks, and then go back over it and say, this has gotta be the priority.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I was just gonna say, one thing I think
We're all gonna be sitting there going, oh my God, that's way too much.
It's
It's a lot when you lay it all.
Yeah.
One of the ones I say works here, maybe just to keep the way that simplifying it or clarity of it, is when you put in the contract, the column of contract technician, ran it down and you went, that's contracted directly by the user, right? That's a really good, clear, simple line, right? Because that means, like, even in-house, the in-house producer, the hearth, contracts separately, right? So it makes a nice, clear line on the production technical side, how it works, right? And so that, I just pointed that out as a nice, clear, simple way of dealing with. So some of the other areas, if we can get that kind of clarity and simplicity, it'll help, right? You just go like, right, when this happens, this is who we talk to, because this is what the responsibility of the venue is. And these are the people responsible for the activities that are gonna go on inside the venue. That's where the overlap comes in, right? And so I don't know, I don't necessarily need another column or anything. In fact, I think when it's just going through, maybe it's in the description of it, but I didn't see anything that jumped out where I went, oh no, that's in the wrong column or that's not clear. It's just that sometimes it was a little bit, you know, if it's gonna be the hearth doing it, is it the in-house person who's the in-house presenter producer having to manage a rent, like some needs of a renter?
But I think that's part of the intention, isn't it? Like if it's a theatrical rental, it would be, essentially, it's the in-house producer presenter is the same person, isn't it?
It can be, but we just have we understand the gray area because I don't wanna, I'm just trying to help clarify it because it's something we run into. So we've got our own work that we do, we put in our theater. We partner with people and people use our venue to rent and put on a series. Like the Cap Jazz, they come in and they produce their own series. They come and do that on a regular basis. And then we have people walk in off the street who see that from the outside and they want that. So they rent the venue. And then they expect to get everything the Cap Jazz gets, and they expect us to produce the show, right? They go, well, where's the marketing? Where's the publicity? Where's the ticket sales? Where's the technician who's gonna run it? Where's the lighting design? We go, no. They go, no, you're the producer. You're the producer presenter. We're the venue. Yeah, we do. Yes, we do that, but we're not doing that for you because that's that department over there, right? And so that's that clarity that's needed right at the front, because it helps sort it out, right? And so, because people don't have the experience when they come to a venue, they see a show. And so they want it, they rent, they start on that contract and then they don't realize all the elements that are in there. And can be time consuming, right? And so I think that's what you've really clearly laid out is who's gonna deal with that. Right? And so that's why I say that's what's not quite the same thing, right? And for people like Tony who are really experienced to do it, it's going to be an easy fit, right? Because you guys know what to do already. And it may not be an issue for many people, but sometimes off-island people who come in, they just need that clarity. And you're right, Judy, the thing is to watch out how much work that generates. And it won't be things that are gonna come up right away as soon as you open. So I would just try to help clarify those roles.
Well, and plus the fact that the production would want to come in under a series, because they know that they get
Yes, exactly.
everything.
Yeah.
And the series usually is planned ahead with grants and promotion, and so it's difficult to say, sorry, no, we're done for the year. You can do it on your own, but I know Sherry Ulrich said that.
Yeah,
She, it's a lot easier to go in
yes.
with help.
Yeah, and then there's a limited capacity with that as all, right? And so you do get that, and then you get people, they can decide if they wanna try it on their own and do other stuff. It's the key is, as you know, going into it, is the clarity that we can give from this committee to the staff that's managing it, and the tools at the beginning is gonna make it easier, because then there's less confusion as it goes forward, right?
If someone comes in as a rental, can you charge them for each sort of line
And
item?
that's exactly what we do, but what we do is exactly what you've done here, is they must be contacted directly by the user group. So we have people to do it, and we just make it really clear that you're hiring them. It's your choice. It's not like, if we insist that there's a technician there, then we say it's part of the rental package. That we keep it at a low level. So all the other stuff that they want, right?
And we also had this conversation at a couple of the workshops in terms of, one of the things that Tony experienced when we went off island to try and
Yeah.
get help from the Performance Center and from KB was, us naively thinking that we could buy into all of the work that was available. It did not happen for a variety of reasons. The amount of lead time that we didn't have, or, just against the general policy. K-Meek never did that. So, trying to figure out, we talked about wanting to be able to get that a website up and so that we could take people's.
Okay.
Well, let me jump in on that for you. I made the comment, and Kim, I don't think you were there that day, is when we did the KV, that was buried on the website. There wasn't help with X, Y, and Z. It got us to asking whether or not we wanted to do next year, if we wanted to rent that space. That's a conversation that we as Tony are having. We don't know the answer to it yet, because there's a lot to it, the finances as well. But I made a comment last time saying that we here on Bowen, we're unique. We're going to be if we're bringing people from off island and they're coming to book it as a user group, forget a Heart series, their own show.
Yeah.
We need to be a little different than other groups that came in, perhaps your organization, so that we make sure that those people feel supported, so that they're having a good time. Because at the end of the day,
But you'll lose money. Who's paying for all that?
I don't think we'll lose money.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. I can tell you that you will lose money. Because it costs more money to do.
Well, let me finish my thought there though too. At the end of the day, we have X amount of money that we need to hopefully make here to be able to support debt servicing, all of that sort of stuff. And if we're gonna make it difficult for user groups to come in here so that we can make some more money, they're not gonna come back that second year. And I really firmly believe that we have to be really careful on that.
Right.
Now, okay, granted, maybe other groups do something different, but maybe it's our opportunity to be on our own.
Right,
And
but
do
it's,
not follow necessarily an industry standard.
with all due respect, like Fraser, I run a business. And the business loses money all the time. Like this notion that you're gonna make money off of this The whole purpose of this is cost recovery, just to get out without losing your shirt. And the reason the KME does what they do is because they lose money when they do it. So things like, I'm just gonna go to your database of your, who's buying from, and who are your customers, and who is your network, is gold. No theater ever shares that. We don't give that to any renter who ever comes in.
Sure, and I'm not suggesting that in this case,
No,
but
no,
what I
no.
would suggest from, like, if I gave the K-Meek feedback from what we did.
Yeah.
If it took somebody 30 seconds to post our poster in the email blast they do multiple times a week,
Yeah.
that would have made a difference.
It would have, and they will never do that.
I know, but that's what I'm saying is that we should
No.
consider to do that.
Because you're working on a brand and it's you're representing as a presenter and a producer, you don't want competition. We have to make sure that we don't rent out and advertise something that takes away the business from what we're trying to do and what we're trying to sell. You can't do that.
I don't see what you mean by that.
Okay,
Sorry, Jillian had a comment.
I think maybe one of the key differences is that maybe we won't be having the same volume of in-house production as your venue.
Mhm.
Maybe we're more, I'm saying maybe because I don't really know, and maybe, maybe you envision doing like a lot of shows, but I would suggest, I would think that you might have significantly more at Presentation House than would here.
yes and no. What you've done is it's not like we're bigger or smaller. It's, when I heard what the plan was for this place, in order to make it viable, you need activity to pay for it, because you need to bring that revenue in, right? So you're gonna have business because you need business. If you don't have anybody using it, you're gonna be in trouble, because you're not gonna reach any of the financial goals that you've set out to make the place work. So you're obligated and pressured to find user groups to use the venue all the time, right? The challenge is, when you're in that situation, I don't care if you're in a little tiny town or a big town or wherever, people come in and by their nature, they can be competitive. They're after the same people, right? The same things are happening. So that's where curation comes in. Like, how do you manage it so that you can have those things going on, so that Tony doesn't get wiped out by somebody coming in and renting and doing something that takes away their business, right? It's a limited market stuff. So that's where the producer / presenter comes in. They're the curators. They're the ones that are determining the kind of activity that goes on in the place. The venue is in the business of just making sure they're busy, right? And so that's where, regardless of what level you're working at, it's a natural tension. And I will just say, the reason that venues who are in the producer presenting role, like the KV, they do both. They rent out, but they also produce and present. So when you walk in as a renter, they've kept all the tools that they use to make producing and presenting function to themselves and don't give them to you. And then you have to pay for them. Now, I know that's unfair, but that's how you survive. So in order to be on the other side, as Jamie was saying, you need us to choose you and go, we're going to present you. So we're going to give you all those tools because you're entering into that. And that's just the nature of the beast, right? Like, it's not a value judgment. It'll always be that way.
I guess again,
Is
there's
Presentation House a municipal building?
Yes. It's owned by the city, completely. And that's why I understand a little bit how it works, because we are on a sweet deal with the city, which is what you're looking at getting, is we don't pay any rent on that building. And on top of that, so the city gives it to us, we pay for water, sewer, right? So we pay a bill to the city, but they also give us a grant, and we have a contract with the city to manage it, so it functions. Anyway, but I just wanted to go in the weeds here a little bit, just about the marketing side of things. So there are areas which you brought up, Fraser, rightly so, was when you went to the KMEC, a lot of the issues were around profile marketing, presence in the space, where you are on the website, who's doing that work. And I think it's a nice, clear line that you've drawn in here, Jillian, that has nothing to do with the facility, management of the facility.
I'm not necessarily saying it as that, maybe it's hearth. If the
Yeah,
hearth is,
exactly.
if that job for the hearth is to be doing the marketing.
Exactly.
For example, and if Toady Group comes in and says, hey, shoot us, could you put your poster, we'll do our own marketing as well too, but if you
Yeah,
put your
yeah,
poster in our email, I don't see that being a big issue.
Well, no, but then I think it's part of like having the produce, it's like a co-production, right? You get into a co-presenter model. The toady would be co-presented by the heart. So you're both working together and doing it, and then you draw up a contract, which we do as a co-presenter, and we go like, yeah, we're gonna work together. And so what you were looking for from the K-Meet was a co-presenting model. You wanted the K-Meet to co-present your event.
Well, given that they're taking a cut of our money, yeah. But anyways, at the end of the day, I think we're kicking a bit of a dead horse here. I do think, and I want to say this out very, very clearly again, I think we have to be really, really careful on this because we need to attract people to come back multiple times. There's only so many theater groups, there's only so many bands, there's only so many, wedding planners that are gonna say, hey, to their person, let's have this wedding over here. And if we screwed up that first time, they're not coming back. Right. So I want to make that clear. Anyways, Kim, we've talked a lot about that one right now. We've got a fair bit we still need to go through as well too. Is there any other comments that we need to make to change on this before we move on to proposed role of booking coordinator and the arts production coordinator?
I marked all these in yellow from what you said you were starring, but seems like a lot.
I mean, the only, as I said, I don't think I wouldn't change any of the things because it's an internal document, as we understand it. I just go like, so, and you've got your little rows here, which are really clear about who's gonna be doing it, and you've got up here, who's the person, like the heart's role as a presenter. And I think you made it really, really clear that the BIM doesn't get in any of the producer presenter roles, which is also really good, right? You don't have any of the, you don't have anybody from the Bowenheimer municipality, like even supporting or helping in that area, which is a good thing. I just think that's really good and clear, because
Well, that's all the work that we had done, put that into this person's
Yeah.
role, right? So.
yes, no, I'm sorry, my comment is,
Yeah.
good.
That's okay.
I think the only thing I thought of, like, if you go up to any room rental, room inspection before and after rental, say you've got somebody finishing up a rental, Sky or something in the evening after facilities coordinator or booking coordinator's gone home, especially given that booking coordinator 0.5 FTE, would you maybe want to include the custodian in on that?
Sorry, which one?
Any room rental, room inspection before and after rental. I mean, I'm sure, yeah, the booking coordinator could go in the next morning. But if you're talking about it like it was almost like a bit of a chain of custody, having a custodian just do a quick look would be smart.
Yeah, it's also down there in the theater performance rental room setup and strike.
Yeah,
Below.
they kind of the same sort of thing in a sense, but I think that'd be, I don't know.
That's this one right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
You can put it as a support or a yes.
I sent Gail a message, did you see that? In the chat? Wondering if somebody could call and call.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, here, I just saw.
I'm sorry, let's stop the meeting and okay.
If it's possible.
Also, Fraser, to that end, same with the final inspection, that's another one, right? The theater performance rental.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Inspection, the custodian would be there as well,
Okay, that is.
rather than.
Hi, Gail, it's right there.
Support then?
Hello? Hi, Gail. Yeah. So far. We'll see you shortly. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Is she on her way here?
Gail's gonna drop off and she's gonna come. She'll be here in a moment.
This is sorry, we're adding custodian support to the inspection
Yeah.
before and after rental,
Yes.
and is there another one?
There's that final inspection way down.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's also one in between room setup and strike.
Hold on, final inspection,
this might just be a question of we need to.
Well,
debate some of the-
Maybe Jamie and I could just do some of that together too.
Yeah.
Of that, like, that just sort of seems housekeeping.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's.
Yeah, so why don't we do that?
Okay,
I would like you to think about too, because the last time we talked about how the department was thinking of doing some programming involved performances. Right, so if that's the case, then where's the overlap there?
Right.
Put some thought into it.
Well, and I think if we expand, this is to support what you're saying, expanding the category, like more things in that category of in-house performance, maybe that's where we need to separate
Yeah.
things out a little bit. In-house versus rental performance.
Yes. And that's gonna be the conversation in terms of the 6 month in advance planning.
Right, exactly. So we're doing things that are complementary and not competing.
Yeah, exactly.
Spacing things out well and yeah.
One of the tricks you could do is that even though it's the rec center that's doing it, you still go through the heart with it. Because it just keeps it clear for anybody who's looking at it, right? You just run it, even though you go like, why are we doing it that way? You just do it that way because it makes it clear. You know, it just.
If the people that are having these positions in terms of production coordinator and live arts coordinator, you know, somebody's coming in from in-house or outside or whatever, and you don't know about it, then everything gets screwed up.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
So
so
there are lines of communication.
yeah,
It's something that we end up doing, which is, it seems like you're having a silly meeting, but it isn't, right? You go like, oh, you're involved in this, even though it's our own fundraiser, we still treat it like it's a rental at a meeting. Just to make sure it gets covered.
Yeah. And I don't see those being twice a year meetings only.
Yeah.
Because things will come up.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're on a schedule here, we got 10 more minutes to wrap up booking coordinator and arts production coordinator. So are we done for this for now? If you, Jillian,
Absolutely.
you're gonna go for it?
This
Yeah.
is what Gail was coming in to talk.
Well, we'll do this when she shows up, we'll jump back on whatever it is, but let's carry on. That's good.
Yeah, and Jamie and I can just clean it up a little
Yeah.
bit and send it back to everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, proposed role, booking coordinator. Wants to jump on this one?
Well, essentially it says all of this, but in a wordier fashion. Because we tried to go back and forth and make sure they were all matching.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't see in the description is how many hours per week.
Well, the top of the column says 0.5 FTE, right?
Yeah, it's not.
How many hours is that?
20.
It's actually not even 20 anymore, it's 7.5, 17.
17.5.
You've got it 8 hours a day for 5 days a week. That's 40 hours a week.
Thank you for noticing.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Where was that?
Yeah, that's why I didn't know if that meant between those hours or if
Yeah.
the hours. So that's.
Yeah, thank you for catching that.
And I think that one of the challenges, this is the nub of the challenge of this, which is the difference between working for the municipality on an hourly rate and working for a not-for-profit arts organization contract. When you work for a not-for-profit organization on a contract, and we contract somebody in, we don't pay them an hourly rate. We say, here's the task, and we made a decision that the task is going to take X amount of hours to complete, right? And so they offer out that contract saying, we're going to pay you a weekly rate or a monthly rate based on those hours. Right? But we don't go, we're doing the clock on you. Reason for that is expertise, skill level. Some people can complete the task in a lot less time because they're very highly skilled at it. Other people need training and support and take longer to complete the task and need more support, and they'll get faster at it eventually, right? So that is the way we control our costs. In the past, because we were a municipally owned building, we had a custodian we hired on the hourly rate, and it became a non-functional, unfeasible. It was costing way too much money what needed to happen. So we ended up changing the model and switching to an outside contract for the tasks that needed to be done. And it was mainly so that we could control it, right? So that's just something way of looking at this. And the risk of going at the top of saying, you know, we're gonna pay you an hourly rate and we're gonna figure out what it is, because that's the way you work in a municipal rate, but in a not-for-profit, you work in a different way. And so that was my only observation on this, and it's and it's that ages when I talk about those two levels of economy and what expectations are. And often work that is done from passion, or there's a real interest in it, like you volunteer and come and you want to see it done, so you do it. You tap into that at a certain level with certain types of tasks. As we know. Yeah, and so I don't have an opinion either way on this, but I just know that you end up doing that because you get trapped into one, and it's really hard to go back. It's when you make it at an hourly rate and you set that up, then you find out if you miscalculate it, it can become pretty darn expensive to solve the problem, because that's the only tool we have. So what we've done is we tried to go the other way, which is start off with a contract, be broad with it, and if it grows into an hourly thing and it does settle into something that's more like that, that's an easier journey, because it's harder to go back the other way.
So the programming and production coordinator.
But this is a good example because it's broad in terms of it's got one theme, like may have any hours on it, doesn't have any of those things set up like a contract. This one is more like an hourly rate without defining what it is. So it's a good example of two different ways.
So this is different from the, what's been advertised, the two positions which are hard at this point.
I missed your question.
Is this the same or different than the two positions that have been hired, advertised for the heart?
Well, the marketing specialist is quite a different.
Yes.
position. And the live arts coordinator is a coordinator just to assist for the upcoming season, for the short season, the 5 months.
Right.
So it's more of an assistant to the PAC, because the PAC will be the volunteers.
Okay, so then is this the description for what we're trying to hear, the production programming coordinator? And it's 0.5 FTE, new position?
Sorry?
Yeah.
Yes, that's this.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, maybe it wasn't 0.5 FTE.
Well, no, because it's a contract position.
But it's equivalent.
25.
I haven't calculated.
Hey, hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, next month.
Months. Sorry about that.
You've jumped on to looking at programming production. This guy right here. But if you have something from the last bit that we were jumping in that you need to jump, throw us back, please do.
The only thing I wanted to say, thank you for letting me speak about it, is that the live arts coordinator and the programming and production coordinator, one has no funding from the municipality and the other could. And that's the one thing that I just wanted to try to inject into that conversation, is the nature of the conversation, though the two of you were not present for those workshops, was the possibility of receiving support from the municipality, and that had to broaden the mandate. That was the one thing. And then the only other thing from that conversation, which was really great to listen to, it was helpful to hear Kim lay it out. Same as what I feel Jamie and I have tried to say, but in more specific language, because this is your job and you've been running, keeping a ship afloat for a long time, and we're just projecting how to keep the ship afloat. We have to find ways to co-present with organizations that would like the Hearth to staff a lot of their challenges, or their, the things that would be left. Sorry, I just ran over. That for the hearth to be able to step in and do a lot of those things on the list. We've talked about that we would be taking a cut at the door, or that's what co-presenting is. We use the term cut at the door, but he's using the term co-presenting. Maybe that fills in some of the conversation. Thanks.
Thank you, Deb. Came all over that way. It ran from where?
Oh, it's just in my house, but I have someone who just,
We could really physically run all that way.
Do you know something that's actually great is that they're very close in compensation, these positions.
Yeah, I know.
They're extremely close.
Yeah.
It's actually, so I just sort of calculated, obviously it's rough, but if this one's 45,000 a year for 12 months and approximately 25 hours a week, I just did 45,000 by 52 by 25.
Yeah.
And that's $34.6 an hour.
Yeah.
And which is smack in the middle of this one. So that's kind of cool.
It is. I think it's literally, it's no one's being taken advantage of. It's just how it gets framed
Yeah.
and we use the word flexibility. It's like we're working within an arts organization at a non-profit level, there needs to be a lot of flexibility, which municipalities cannot afford, right? You can't afford to enter into, because people will assume they will be abused and they need the protections, and it's natural. It's just natural. And so that's also why who signs the contract and who sets up the parameters. And it's nice that, to benefit from it. I just haven't, I've done such great work on it. I don't have a specific comment like to drill down on it, but I just understand how, like at this table, this decision is kind of an important one because it's sort of, as you said, Gail, what we're projecting into, what we're building, what we're making.
I think there needs to be a little bit more supervision of the contract position.
There is. And
Definitely.
that's natural,
Yeah.
right? Whereas if you hire the other way, although we call everybody a director, we hire somebody to make them a director because then we say, you're not going to get supervision. You're the director of marketing, right? Even though you're just hired on the street to do marketing. Because then you go like and we give you tasks, and if you take a long time to do them well, you can come and talk to us about it. Which is just a different way. And so I'm curious as about what people feel about which is the right way to go, or is it a combination of the two, or like because
I think with the hearth, it was a contract position
right,
because it could evolve.
right,
And it's easier to evolve a position if
right,
you have that flexibility after 12 months. If we, for instance, don't get the funding or something happens, or we do get a lot of funding, if we apply for a grant.
Yeah.
Things could change.
yeah.
And that just gives us flexibility to do that.
And Jillian, the one that's coming from the municipality, like where is this one at? Is that a real thing here?
This is a draft.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I know it's a draft document. I mean, the resource behind it. Where is?
We're still working that out in terms of budgets and we're also, while recognizing the need that we can't really wait.
Right.
So if I have to shift responsibilities within my department temporarily, but
No, I mean, from my experience, it's like, again, we do this dance with the city all the time on everything. And landscaping, we do it around facility management, we do it around advertising, we do it everything, and the conversation is always the same. I do not know if this will be helpful, it's just background context. Anything over 5K, the city just goes, it's in a completely different process. If it's under 5K, the city has the ability to give us a contract for under $5,000. And it's the way that City of North Vancouver is set up. So we get into this game of trying to divide projects into things under $5,000 so that we can get a contract from them and then we can hire somebody to do it. So that's the game we're in, right? And it works really well, kind of, although we know it's a game, right? So it allows us to get these little parcels of $5,000 from the city. Some of them we put together and try to keep something going. But what the bigger picture was, we got into this long-term lease agreement, which really divided up what the responsibility was. Like who's responsible for what and what we're responsible for paying for. So everything goes along until something goes wrong, right? And then it's like, oh, it's our gig. We have to do it. We're in trouble. We have to find the money. And then the city goes, well, we can't help you because that's the lie. But then we can put in these little things to try and do that. It's not great, but it's just what we've evolved into. In a bigger way, the city then has responsibility for giving us things in the lease agreement where they've got somebody on staff to do it. And they know that that's the person's responsibility. But it took us a long time to get there to sort all that out. It was operational all the time, right? And it wasn't around things like the performing arts. It was literally around, we're an old building and how we're gonna do stuff. There may be something in that in a way of the heart working with the municipality, setting up some really, really, really clear parameters. And so the city is well aware that we're able to make the $5,000 go twice as far as it would if they were to use it. In other words, if the $5,000 came out of their budget, like it's not gonna go very far, right? Just because they have, that would be their staff, their employees, what they're doing. So things cost a lot more at their level just because of how they process it. So we were doing this on a case by case level, like temporarily, so there was no long-term commitment. So I don't know if that's a useful discussion, but a way of like breaking the tasks up and go, okay, we're gonna break them up and we're gonna be able to say that this, like when you're looking at the budget, Jillian, and you go like, it's gonna be a short-term contract to get something done. Maybe it's better to do the hire like through the heart because it's a short-term contract, right? It's just gonna be for like 3 months, 2 months, till we see, then we evaluate. Because you're right, it needs to get done, and it probably needs to get done pretty quick. And then you also look like whether we end up hiring people from the city. It's a weird thing, but sometimes it's $4,000, but we're actually, going, city department, like, we're gonna do it directly. Gonna come out of our budget, right? So we're gonna do it that way, because then it just means that the person is responsible. If they have a contract with, a good example is Great Canadian Landscaping. Great Canadian Landscaping has a contract with the city. We hire those, sometimes do a little thing for us.
He's going to get helpful in something stuff, please.
This is not ready to go to.
But it would,
Sorry?
would it? Is that,
Has to.
yeah, it has to, thank you, yeah.
I need a little bit more clarity on the overlap between the live arts coordinator and the production and programming coordinator. I see so many similarities and I get what you said, but could you provide a little bit more?
Yeah, sorry, I think it's, a lot of what was discussed was that we put forward a live arts coordinator position through the heart as what was the term that Kristen used, like a time gap.
Bridging.
It's a,
Bridging.
it's a bridging contract. So it existed prior to the conversation of a municipally, some support from the municipality. So we created that, we allocated the only amount of money we had. It was a 5-month contract. And then the conversation began to create something a bit larger, which would be a 12-month. They would not overlap. And in fact, the first change I would see made is that right now we have the remuneration and conditions as a 12-month contract starting in June 2025. But because of the delay around the holidays, our contract is really not going to begin, the live arts coordinator 5-month one, until February. So that takes us through June. So we would already move this by 1 month to start in July of 2025. They do not, they seem like the same position because they are largely the same position. The live arts coordinator is the smallest version of it to get us through the first performance season. And then the idea of business development and all of that is very little in the live arts coordinator's portfolio, but would become much bigger, more significant component of this production, programming and production.
So you, in a sense, could possibly see the live arts coordinator job morphing into that production programming coordinator down the line.
Maybe it's a different person. It's hard to say.
Yeah, we don't know if it would be the same person. Let's see how the first person does.
Yeah, if it's a rock star right off the bat,
Yeah,
right?
it would be amazing. And then, but you know, I heard you guys asking Jamie the question, did we promote this first contract off island? No. And let's see what we get. Like if we get great applicants from island, why would we look off island? But if we don't, and we find that the person that we bring in for the contract, for the 5-month contract, really doesn't satisfy the objectives, then maybe we would be looking more broadly, but somebody would be taking a 12-month contract as opposed to a contract. So does that?
No, that helps me think.
Yeah, so it's it might be an
It might
evolution,
evolve.
but right now, we're kind of filling a gap until we can do something bigger.
That column could actually be taken out, the live arts coordinator.
You could go live arts coordinator / production program.
Oh, that's an interesting idea because it is just a temporary. It is very temporary and it's
Sorry,
evolving.
yeah, that really helps me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, maybe we should do that. Should we do that? Take it out confusing.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
I think in terms of, I don't know what Kristen's thinking, but in terms of setting something up for a budget, when we're doing the budget for the trust and we have to come up with a business case for, you know, hiring a consultant or hiring an extra staff person or basically taking up resources, and we have to come up with a business plan. And it lays out in detail, much like this job description has, of all of the details of the job that we're expecting to get done, whether it's the performance or the tasks for a person. So if we had something like whatever we're going to call it, let's say program and production coordinator, let's put those two columns together and have it set out so that it's, X number of hours, and somehow or other we have, this is more than a full-time position. And we're trying to figure out how to do it on a 0.5 and grow into it or build on it. So in terms of selling it on this budget, if by some miracle we can come up with a 1 FTE equivalent that gets divided between the facility manager or whatever we're calling it, the booking coordinator and the production coordinator. And we're gonna have to work in terms of selling that to the rest of the committee. So it has to be polished and clear and, laid out in ways that they understand. So, I think this is easier to sell. And it's a great long list of a whole lot of responsibilities. And so somebody's sitting there saying, that's more than 17 hours a week. And it's like, yes, but we've looked at that too, and we're gonna highlight, and this is the primary concern until that's up to speed, then we'll start building in on this. And we might, depending on how successful it is and whether or not we've got any kind of surplus, which is kind of ridiculous given the cost of the place, but let's call it some sort of magical bookkeeping. Then we work into it in terms of it's important, it's successful, it's really helpful. We can't count on volunteers, or we need to focus on volunteer coordination and some extra. But this is too vague, where it's too, it's not set up in a way that is fits with what I think the council is going to need to look at in terms of.
And one aspect,
Maybe that's where we need your help in terms of setting up a business case.
well, may I make a suggestion there, because the difference between something, let's say, like garbage collection or landscaping or any of these other costs they've got no the activity that's being done has no potential for any revenue generation. It's just a cost of getting it done, right? They're very clear. So we're dealing with that. It just costs the money and that's what it is. This is a little bit different. It's organic. And so I use the metaphor, it's something that can actually grow because an aspect of the work is revenue generating. That's what we know, because people will pay money to see stuff and that revenue gets generated and it can get divided up and used. So what is needed often is startup funds, which means it's limited. That's why we talk to the city about a contract. We say, we need this amount of money for this amount of time. And then if it works, if the seed is planted and it starts to work, we won't be coming back to the table for the same amount of money. It's going to start to diminish, or it's going to stay at a very small level and growth will come from another source of revenue, right? And that's the business case. You go and I have to show that plan about the kind of revenues that are going to be generated and how they're going to get divided in order to enable that growth. And that does make that business argument, because you go, right, it is a full-time job. It's going to require more resource, but that resource is going to come after it's been in operation for a while and the activity starts to happen and the space gets used, the performing arts space gets used, and that there are benchmarks set up over 3 to 5 years going, this is what it has to do in order for that growth to happen, right? And that's often what you do in a grant application as well. You go, you're asking not for operational funds, but you're asking for startup money, essentially, right? And then it's looked at and going, is it feasible or not? Is that a feasible proposal? Is it really going to happen? Is that realistic? Is it feasible? And I think I've just suggested that might be an approach to bring to council with it. But you're right, it needs that kind of work to be realistic in that, going like, these are the benchmarks over 3 or 4 or 5 years, going, this amount of activity, this kind of revenue would be generated. And a certain aspect of that would then go back to fulfill the growth of this position.
A little bit of caution about using startup.
I wouldn't be sorry. I wouldn't emphasize using that.
I think what we want is, some sort of core stable commitment. And, anything that gets generated is something that we can use somehow, some other way.
Invest back in.
Yeah. So,
Like Kim said, you won't make a lot of money. You make very little money. As a matter of fact, you just break even.
You just break even.
I don't think you can count on ticket sales being a revenue generator.
No, but what you do is
I do.
I provoke
I'm
from where
sorry,
we.
I'm a real tight ass treasurer with Jody and it has to be funny.
Yeah. But you have a lot of volunteers, but it'd be interesting, Janie, there can be growth, but it's a different kind of growth. So like 12 years ago, a presentation.
It's, for instance, the money that the seed money that you retain from ticket sales could go into the following year to build.
Yeah,
the
it's like
program,
benchmark. It's
right?
well, yeah, it is exactly. And so if we look at our operations, when I took over the company, it was at 500,000, now it's at 1.2 million, right? So that's like double growth, but we don't have any more money. What we're doing is we're doing more activity, and that activity is more revenue generating, and that revenue goes back into the company. But that means it has to continue that activity because we've hired people with that money now. Right? And that's growth, but it's not profit,
No,
right?
it's also,
not profit.
it's also money that if you take a hit and you don't sell your tickets and you still have to pay your.
Benchmarks, exactly.
Yeah, right? You've got some seed money to fall back on.
Right, exactly. And that's relying on, and I'd be really crass here in a simple way. We've got more people passing through the building who are spending money on us for various different reasons. Because they want it to be part of the community. And that's the potential of the community center. I don't mean just the performing arts. I mean, that whole building has a potential of getting money from the community.
So is it feasible to think that after a period of time, say 2 years, that this position would be generating sufficient revenues where a portion of it is kept by the venue or whatever organization is paying this person in order to become self-sustaining, that?
That's what you're
So
trying
then,
to benchmark.
if that would be the perfect scenario, then that is also a really good way to kind of build into the contract an incentive for that person to continue to generate business.
Yeah.
And more, because that, initially say it was a 1 year or maybe a 2 year contract saying that, the business case is asking the municipality to provide funding for this role for a period of time, a defined period of time, with the hopes that it becomes self-sustaining and it becomes,
Yeah, that's
it
exactly
generates
it.
enough money. So that then is the business case. We're looking for
Yeah, it
funding
is.
to,
And then of that, and
for a
that,
fixed period of time.
that's right. And then you don't necessarily get the money just from earned revenue. What you do is you find other ways of generating revenue, and that comes from grant programs. Our sustainability is not from ticket sales. Our sustainability is coming from programs like our Firefly program, our Golden Fire program, our Black History Matters program. We've tapped into the health industry, we've tapped into the education department. We find these different ways of doing it and finding the money because we're actually in the business of keeping an employee hired. Knows full well that in order to have a job there, that these benchmarks have to be hit. And that's growth. It's harder to do when you're speculating. We're at the building stage here. It's really tricky.
So there's nothing in this job description about grant writing whatsoever
Yeah, there is.
after
It's
this.
it's in the other one. It's in the description of the Art coordinator.
Okay, but this is
Not
the
here.
permanent one.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's
It needs
something
to
that
be
needs to be.
Yeah, it's under number 1. It says, as you get towards the bottom of the first page, the programming and production coordinator will be responsible for budget development, ongoing financial reporting, and active revenue development strategies for arts and cultural events, including the research, preparation, and submission of sponsorship and grant proposals.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Yep, my mistake.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what we're really trying to do here is formulate something that would be paid to council that would be able to get some money because the heart has found some money and made a commitment, but clearly needs to be a partnership in some way to try and get, and I won't use the word startup or seed, but it's like prime the pump. Like it won't happen without it. That's the hard part. I use the word about risk. It's like there needs to be this investment in risk. It's risk money, no matter where it comes from. It's risk money because you just need to see if it's going to catch. And without the risk money, it's just really hard to get it started.
Okay, so in the interest of time, what's our next step on this? When is council starting the budget stuff again? We talked about this the last time, that was a couple months ago.
So they're starting with a committee of the whole meeting on January 20th. What I see would be the best piece of this is, in our presentation as staff to council, we can kind of placehold it. We say, we've got this potential funding to the heart in the budget for this position. And you can expect a presentation by members of the committee when the business case is complete and ready to come to council, as I don't suspect it'll be ready for January 20th. But that committee, I think, should present can come before council as a delegation at any public council meeting. Just coordinate with Sophie, the corporate officer, as to what meeting. And I think it should be presented as an agenda item at a council meeting as a separate piece. But I do think that it needs to be a joint. I think that people coming forward need to be joint to demonstrate that it's a partnership and that it's something that's supported by both the municipal side and on the hearth side. And
I think the important distinction too that we talked about very early on was that in order to be eligible for grants, that a big chunk of this, there's one full-time position that we can divide up the tasks in terms of relating to the venue and relating to productions.
Yeah.
But whatever money that we're going to put into a position that has to do with productions and getting grants to
It can be
assist with that,
leveraged.
it has to be something that is, we're sponsoring the Hearts to help with that major aspect. So it's an investment in helping to get more grants.
That's right.
Yeah. And that money is actually, there's a lot of grants that look at that for what the contribution is, and so that's just interesting how the city presents it so that it can be used as leverage money.
I think that's the most important part of what the partnership is between the Heart and the venue with respect to performances. That, we can get help, and we're helping them to leverage. So it's a symbiotic in terms of making ourselves eligible for all that. Whatever's.
So our next step, I'm thinking we need to meet as like a subcommittee group to come up with that business case, plan a presentation to council. Do that quick, so that we can say, maybe next meeting, we will have a presentation, something like that.
Or it could be in February, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
What do we think about that?
It's a good idea.
The final budget is March,
No, April.
April.
I would plan for one of the meetings in February.
The other thing can help is what I call reverse engineering. I mean, you know what it costs, what it is, but the reverse engineering is somebody with some expertise gives a number that the municipality is able to do. And then you just reverse engineer everything to that. So it doesn't look like because it's not gonna be, it's never enough, it's never enough. And then you just reverse engineer the proposal so that it's the right number. We found that works well with the city, right? Coming to the city and saying, we want way more money than you have, just sets everything off on the wrong tone, right? Because it's short, or it makes the feasibility get very, very insecure. So what we do is we try and get a number from the municipality about what's likely to happen. And then we just reverse engineer the entire proposal, so that's the right number. Even though it's always not enough, but that's like how long the contract would be, like what it would go, how it would work.
I think something else that would be helpful in the business case too is to also focus on the accountability of the position and reporting structure and how the work will be oversight. I know the Hearth would be the payer and the ultimate director, but if it's essentially being funded for a specific purpose, then I think from a municipal perspective, we would like ongoing feedback and reporting as to, what grants were applied for, or, that kind of stuff.
And that's good. It's benchmarks too, because that's allows you to check in and see what the feasibility of it is gonna be.
Yeah.
And that's a part of it. That's just good planning too, right? That's like, we do that anyway. You do that anyway. Like you hired you for 5 months or 6 months, and we know we want you to stay on, but we aren't gonna know that unless we found these benchmarks have come into place. So is that like kind of taking a bit of this and a bit of this and working it into one document, or no, we're just like? Or is it-
Are you saying, do you see this as the same position?
Well, it's not, but the money is going towards helping solve this problem. That's what I see, I see that there's, all this work needs to be done. And the money is coming as part of the money, if the Heart has some money as well. So I don't necessarily see the jobs being combined, but it's like the resource is going to come at these jobs. Am I being too naive? So I'm not necessarily saying that the document gets turned into one document, it's just that the proposal going to council is to have this put on.
Well, I think we need more time. We're at 6:45 and then, respective staff, ends of days and all of that sort of stuff too. I've got a few more things to do. Can we just look at time, maybe next week for us to have another, it doesn't, maybe it doesn't have to be everybody
But I'm just thinking, yeah, some committee to come and work on.
coming up with a business case. Or was it, how we present it.
And we definitely want to have people there who are gonna make it the right tone, hitting the right benchmark, you know, like the things that Judy was saying about making sure that it's stated in a way that the council is going to be influenced and, you know, or encouraged in the right direction. And what Kristen was saying about reporting, like adding that in, like we need people there to make sure these two dovetail and look the same and almost read the same, but with different line, you know, job responsibilities, but almost they have like a shared feeling about them. It's like, this is the same thing and these are the way they live in together, and it just, but we need people there to help. I'm happy to come to the subcommittee meeting, but you know, I mean, this is as good as it's gonna get from Gail.
You have to remember too, us as a group, maybe not all of us have those expertise bits to do that, so we need to get all of our different
And
bits
I'm
together.
like with Gail, I'm happy to help from my perspective, but I don't have the experience with in relationship to the municipality, so we could go off and have a lot of fun, but we may not know something that's gonna work.
So then do we need all of us at the next meeting?
Well, I'm willing to help in terms of that, but I don't know. I kind of hear what Gail's saying, something from the city's perspective would be pretty darn useful.
Where's the city?
What's that? Or the municipal?
Well, I mean, I like writing. I'm a little bit puzzled and wondering, and I don't have the answer in terms of putting myself into a conflict situation.
Mhm.
So I don't want to create a
Oh, right.
document that I
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
defend
Yeah.
and not be able to
I-
vote on.
I think that,
Yeah.
yes, I agree, Judy. That's
So-
The odd editor.
Okay, so from your perspective, what do you, like, could you contribute to something and then not present it?
I don't know.
I
I'm
think
hoping.
you're fine. Yeah, a lot of counselors do work on, I'm going to name 7 who've done a ton of work and then presented for council. In my experience,
Yeah.
previous.
I did for the grant application, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure about this, so. All right, so
I mean,
I'll
if you're
take a
trying to get out of
shot.
it, I can
I'll
change
take a
my.
shot at it,
You'll take a shot at the business case
yeah,
and then you want to
And
bring it to
draft,
us
yeah.
perhaps and.
and spread it around. And I'll say that now because it's my first meeting of the new year and it happens.
We've got you on a good day. Okay, so with that in mind, would you then share it to us and then we work on it remotely, or you have it ready for a next meeting and then we go through it together to work on it? Just trying to think of the
But give me a
logistics of
deadline for the next meeting.
What do we want to do next meeting?
You say next Tuesday, like a workshop?
Yeah, well, that was gonna be the
Subcommittee
committee
workshop?
Yeah, that's a workshop on this.
Can we,
We can't do a real committee.
can we
meeting.
book it after the 20th? Cause I'm not gonna be able to help.
Yeah.
We need you here for this.
Then
21st?
Yeah.
You'll be so tired.
Which is why you're really need to look at February.
Sorry, Kristen, you're no go for 21st or?
No, something's happening.
21st.
What about the 4th of February, Tuesday?
It's for me.
No go the 28th either.
Tuesday actually is not gonna work for me anymore because I've signed up for art classes.
Oh,
Exciting.
That.
art classes.
What if we did it like a Monday?
Thursdays are also, Mondays are good, but they're not as good for counselors.
Right.
They are on the off days.
Yeah.
Like Monday the 3rd. I mean, I don't speak for you. Monday, February 3rd, council day.
Well, the 20th is a council day, right?
Yes, what about the 27th?
That's the 20th is a committee of the whole, and then the 27th is a regular council meeting.
Okay.
But the 3rd is not a council meeting.
We were looking at Thursdays maybe too.
No,
Good for me.
There may be some ones I can join remotely,
Thursday
but yeah.
the 30th or.
No, honestly, right now, like, there's gonna be a point where I'm gonna have to jump in on remote stuff going forward. Kid stuff, but don't worry about that for setting a date. We'll work around it. I'll work around it.
Thursday the 30th.
Same time, 6.
So what was that, what was good, was it,
Oh, you just said no to Thursdays.
and what
Tuesday
about
and
Monday the
Thursdays.
third?
2 a week? You're gonna become an artist.
What about Monday the 3rd?
What about Monday the third?
The room is free.
Okay, that's it.
4:45.
I don't work on Mondays, so anytime you guys want.
So skiing.
Well, it is skiing, I just didn't want to say that.
Gail, you and I were gonna go ski together and then we'll come to the meeting.
Yeah, okay.
Uh,
4:45 is good for me, because
Okay,
then I can
4:45
go
works.
skiing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, can
Let you
we
know.
leave that there and then jump really quickly to Nicolaquim Youth Squamish? Gail, can we jump to the Nicolaquim Youth Squamish naming and series of spaces, please?
I don't know how it all made it
Yeah, on
to the,
your
but I
name's on
said
it,
to
so.
Lee, as we
Okay.
were leaving the last meeting, I said, I don't know when Bowen Theater was given its name, but I'm interested to know why did we ever consider using the term Nicolaquim in our naming? And that was how this ended up on the new business. I'm open to discussing it.
You're
But
fair.
it was, yeah, I just wonder about that, because it's a beautiful name and we should all become so proficient at saying it because we use it in our everyday language, and I just thought it would be really nice if it was included somehow.
Jillian, you had your hand up.
Just to say that it was the Community Center Select Steering Committee that chose the name of Bowen Theater.
Yeah, I don't think we can go back at this point and change it to something else, but so forget the theater portion of it for a second. What about the whole community center? There's gonna be a component. Of course, we'll use the Squamish name, right?
But this is a much bigger topic because I don't know what the relationship is with the municipality and all that kind of stuff, but people use often naming as a way of generating revenue through fundraising and stuff like that. That is, and
We attempted that.
We tried that.
We
tempted
didn't
that. I
get
know.
donations at that level.
But that's the whole building, but there's smaller parts of it and things like that. And it is a way of contracting buy-in from the community, not just on the money side. But I think it's two things I would comment about it is, one, it's an organic ongoing thing. And it's not something that a group of people sit down and just decide to do. It's something, because it does help it to bring things to the place, and not just one way we know is corporate sponsorship, that they get it. But there are other ways that gaming has brought energy, resources into the center. So it's a great idea, but I think it's organic and broad, right? So it was started by a steering committee to come up with a name because they had to. But as we grow, or it continues to go, we can maybe look at how to engage more people into it and use it as a tool to bring energy and resource to the space. Which is why it's not like, let's have a contest to figure out what we're naming it. It's what is, like, as you say, Nicolaquim, which is the name of the island. How do we use that to bring it, bring support and energy and people and money to the space?
There's also, if we're using a First Nations word, name, there's also a very formal protocol.
Yeah.
And we've just been through a whole process that worked really, really well in terms of 2 beaches and the performing stage outside the hearth, the gallery,
Yeah,
so.
exactly. And that's part of what that is it
yeah.
does do that. It's,
And I can't remember the details, but there was something in terms of there not being a word for a stage. And it, somehow or other working through some complexities of understanding of the sort of the cultural differences. So if we did want to do First Nations, that's it was something probably that the council would have to, we'd be making a suggestion to council, and there'd be a formal reaching out and contact and negotiating around what would be not so much our suggestions, but something that they would be comfortable with and that we could understand and accept.
I feel it's like a baby. I've never named a baby till I've seen its eye. How the naming of it, what the baby is for. Baby then seems to know. I named two babies.
Lee, what's the, like, right now, there's no signage at the community center. Is something coming?
Probably the street number.
The street.
Yeah, well, the street number's there.
There is,
But-
there's the main sign out front, right in the plaza there that.
Yeah.
But on the
Chambers?
outside? Pardon me? On the outside of the building? Okay.
And it's already designed and built and paid for. Yeah, so anyway, but just naming is also beyond just what that sign is. It's
It only says
interesting.
Bowman Island Community Center. So,
Yeah.
you know, there's room for more.
And
Yeah.
internally, there's no
Yeah,
wayfinding sign.
right.
Yeah.
East Cultural Center named their washroom. We named our washroom. We did, we actually
see
named,
the eyes?
we named the men's urinal. People would read it while they were.
The Kimmel-Celity.
No, I didn't pay for it. Fraser Elliott sealed the deal.
My name's on the wall already. Really, what's next on the agenda is question period. Any questions? No. Next meeting, we've already determined. We have to adjourn.
That is.
Sorry, did we decide the next meeting is full open meeting or it's a workshop?
Workshop.
Oh, so we designate that, I will change that minutes.
Okay. Alrighty, thanks, everybody.
Then why don't we follow up by, phone or email or whatever, and set a time? I don't think it's.